Good afternoon and good morning to those of you that have joined from the States. Thank you for joining today's webinar. As always, we'll just leave it a minute, not too long, just to make sure that you're all settled in. And we look forward to running this webinar. So we'll just give you a few seconds. It's always the worst part because I have to try and keep quiet for a few seconds. Find it very hard.
That's why I've pressed mute.
Okay, so we'll just leave it for a few more seconds. So, as I said, thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar, the skills shortage myth and how to find top global talent in 2022. This is such a huge topic, isn't it, this year? So let's start. So I just want to say thank you to Globalization Partners and SD Works. And just to introduce our speakers today, we have Jennifer. So over to you, Jennifer. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Melanie. Delighted to be here. So yeah, I'm Jennifer McGuire. I'm Director of Strategic Partnerships for Globalization Partners. It's a mouthful for the UK and Ireland. So basically looking after all of our partners across the region. I'm delighted to be here with one of our partners, SD Works, who we work alongside to really support their clients where they might have employees who sit outside of their HQ countries or regions where they have a local entity. I've been with the business for 18 months now, and I'm really excited to be here and talk about this talent challenge that a lot of companies are facing, and hopefully give you some good examples of how we've supported our clients, but also how we as a business have actually navigated this crazy new world over the last couple of years.
Certainly is a crazy new world. Okay, so over to you, Kathy, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me. So I'm Kathy. I have been working for 20 years, always in the environment of HR and consulting. I have joined SD Works 8 years and a half ago, first as a talent and reward manager, then becoming HR director. And since 2 years and a half, I'm leading the HR function for SD Works. SD Works payroll solutions globally. We have around 5,500 employees in 18 different countries. And just like everyone in this call, I have been facing that war for talent recently. So happy to join.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Just before we start, just to let you know, the session will be recorded. And if you would like to ask any questions, please add the questions in the chat bot or the question part, and then we'll hopefully get a chance to answer those. So we do really want this to be interactive, so please feel free to ask any questions. So over to you, Jennifer. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about Globalization Partners?
Yeah, absolutely, Melanie. Thank you. I'd be delighted to. So yeah, we are a global employment platform. So basically, we are currently covering 187 countries where we can provide the infrastructure and the expertise to allow our clients to hire and pay their people in the locations where they don't actually have the infrastructure to do so. So it means that they don't have to set up a local entity. They don't have to worry about employment contracts, local benefits, or payroll rules. And they can really leave it completely up to us. And so it's also known as employer of record. There's a number of different sort of terms, but we've been doing this for 10 years. And as I say, currently doing it across 187 countries with 1,000 people internally that are, day to day working with our clients to help them with that employment and payroll piece. And yeah, we're delighted to be here.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so let's start, shall we? So there's been so much in the press, hasn't there, about talent? And as you say, so many people are struggling. So Bloomberg recently released a report in which they said that UK firms need to brace for the great resignation in 2022. Do you think this will be a thing that companies need to be prepared for this year? Jennifer, would you like to answer this first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So of course, this is something that we're all, it's top of mind for so many of me, my colleagues, our customers, and especially HR professionals out there. I do think it is something companies need to be prepared for. So in a nutshell, my answer is yes. But maybe just to give that some background and why we see it this way. So there was a study by Institute for Employment Studies. They estimated that there's still 600,000 less people in work than before the pandemic, and that's just in the UK. In the US last year, I think it was July 2021, there were 4 million resignations in that month alone. So, there's kind of been this perfect storm of obviously the pandemic bringing employees more choice. They feel like, if I'm not going to get the flexibility and the autonomy to work remotely, then I'm going to leave and find a job elsewhere. But also, it's not just, I think, the employees that are leaving because of maybe the lack of flexibility or maybe even pay. Also, I was reading about this topic where the majority of over 50s are actually leaving the workforce, and many over 50s, so older workers, are quitting and taking these these skills with them. So this brain drain, as they call it, which I think is a really good term, is affecting businesses and the economy as a whole. And some of the reasons are, that they're not getting maybe the respect that they would have gotten when they were kind of in their earlier part of their career. And also they don't necessarily get the same flexibility when it comes to things like caring for the elderly. So if they want to go and look after a parent who's not well, or maybe go and see them in the care home, they don't actually get the same flexibility as maybe what a younger person would get to look after the kids or take them to school. So, I think they are just deciding that I can go elsewhere, or I can effectively retire. And I think this is actually really impacting overall what we're calling as this sort of great resignation and war for talent. I do think as the pandemic eases, though, companies are just going to have to, be really understanding and flexible, as I say, and provide a more personalized approach, because these resignation rates will only increase if companies don't adapt and think more inclusively about how they're working with their talent and attracting that talent.
I think every time I've had an event this year, there's been another person retiring. They're in that position and they're like, the last 2 years have shown me that I need to leave. It's unbelievable. Kathy, what's your thoughts?
I think, first of all, luckily at SD Works, we don't see the great resignation taking place yet. Let's hope the yet is not something that will happen. We do see an increase in attrition, but it's mainly picking up after the pandemic, in which we had very low attrition figures. As a business, we also did a survey with our clients in Germany, France, the Netherlands, UK and Belgium. And there we found out that, well, there's people looking for a new role outside the company they're working for. It's an average on like 20% of people, and there are some local differences. So for instance, in the Netherlands, it's 22%, in France and Germany, it's almost 29%. Those are people that are actively or passively open to change employer. But what we did find out in that same survey, and we also observed it within our own company, is an increased interest in internal mobility. So combining both the job security and the employer with a new role. And there you see that a lot of people are actively looking for a new role in their organization. And for me, that is almost an opportunity for all the organizations in this call, in case you want to avoid that great resignation taking place in your business. Make sure you communicate well on development opportunities in your own company, job mobility that is available. So yes, there is a great resignation, but it's not so fierce as the press makes us believe right now. And I think as a company, you can prepare for it.
29% is quite high, isn't it? Yeah,
Indeed. But it's they're open to look for a new job. They didn't answer they would change jobs. So there will be also a delta between people actually changing jobs, of course.
Mm-hmm. So is there really a talent shortage in the market? And what advice would you give companies who want to hire talented people for the role, but are finding it difficult to do so? Kathy, would you like to answer this question?
I think there is a talent attraction challenge right now. So I always say it's even better to keep the door shut and not to recruit with an open door. So it's about paying extra attention to what your employees wish. It's an employee market. But it's also looking at possible reasons why employees would change or consider changing jobs. And one of them, obviously, is salary and extra legal benefit. But as already mentioned before, it can also be about flexible working arrangements. People are now used to working from home in a hybrid model, saying as an employer that after the pandemic, it's not allowed anymore, will not put you in the best place. But it's focusing on the traditional elements, focusing on leadership skills of your management, job content, job security, growth opportunities, and an important element as well, communicating on them. People need to know what are the opportunities that exist within their company. So it's an increased focus on both internal and external branding of what you have to offer as an employer, your employer value proposition. It's also about communication on reward. People look at their payslip, but there's so much more reward than that what info that is on their payslip. So also they're looking at the benefits you offer, looking at flexibilization of reward as well. And that's a way of creating more retention and stimulating also internal mobility if you bring to the attention also the learning and development options you have. But it's a challenging thing.
And we've had a number of our GPA members looking to recruit people, and you're so right about flexibility, because when you speak to people, if there's not flexibility or if they don't have the hybrid model, they're not interested, because there are jobs out there or companies out there that are offering those benefits. So it's not necessarily about the salary, it's about that work-life balance or the hybrid or the benefits that they get from it. So we do hear that a lot. Jennifer, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so true. I completely agree. I think, it's kind of, I don't think employers really have a choice anymore. I honestly think, if it's an option, if you can physically do your role remotely, then you should give that flexibility to employees. Or maybe even if you do work in a factory or somewhere where you have to be on site, giving employees that flexibility, to kind of clock in and out if they do have commitments, as I mentioned, whether that's caring for children or caring for parents. Businesses do really need to adapt. I think generally, to answer this question, I feel like every business is suffering from some form of skills shortage. But in terms of the talent shortage more generally, I genuinely see it that our clients especially are not coming up against this challenge quite so much because they are really thinking globally. I think that's the first thing to think about, is we don't just have to look in the UK anymore, or Ireland, or wherever we may already reside. You can now cast a much wider net and find some amazing talent hub opportunities all over the world. And that's how we've been able to grow so much as well. We've now got 1,000 employees, and when I joined 18 months ago, I think we had about 250. So we're planning to double again now in the next year coming. So that's honestly a big part of that, is because we've just had this global outlook, and we're not letting things like geography or ability to get to the office hold us back in terms of finding those great people. To talk about some of the stuff Kathy went through as well, definitely that sort of employee experience, well-being, giving employees better benefits. And these will differ country to country. So when you are looking at these new hubs, try and find yourself a good partner or somebody that has that expertise around what benefits are really sort of standard and statutory, but also what ones are probably expected, especially if you're a tech company. A lot of tech talent have quite high demands, whether that is things like equity or specific benefits. And again, these will differ country to country depending on the employment laws and in general sort of what's sort of seen as standard by employees. I'd also say, in terms of the advice piece, think about the cultural fit rather than the skill set. We posted a blog recently, and we can share these resources after if people are interested. It was 8 out of 10 employees say that it's important for their company's values to align with their own. And 75% of workers say that they expect their employer to be a force for good. So, if you're aligning on those things with your talent, then that will ensure that they're with you for longer, they're happier. They might look to, for that succession planning and to grow with you as the business grows. So I'd say they're the key things. Maybe one last thing is around employer branding. We've seen a lot of research on this as well, and another study we did showed that a strong employer brand was actually able to reduce employee turnover by 28%. So it's actually helping you to keep people in the business for longer if you have a strong focus on the employer brand piece.
Jennifer, that's really interesting. Thank you. So as companies look to enter new markets and hire global remote teams, what are the most common obstacles they face and how can they overcome them? Jennifer, sorry, I've got you there. And would you be happy to answer on this question?
That's okay, I was just having a little cough. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, most of our clients are looking to enter new markets in some way, shape or form. And of course, there are a lot of different sort of challenges and obstacles that can come up. I think, honestly, the majority of it is around compliance. So key challenges are around GDPR and the equivalent in other countries. This will, things like it's called POPIA in South Africa, for example, the Protection of Personal Information Act. That will affect how you handle employee data. Also thinking about taxation. So if you are going into a new country and you might only want to hire 1 or 2 people, then that's okay. But really thinking about that taxation piece, if you do want to really scale in that country, ensure that you're setting up with the correct tax structures so that you can scale correctly and not leave yourself foiled to potential fines or issues with things like permanent establishment, because that can be triggered after a certain amount of hires, creating a certain amount of revenue in a new country. So that's something to really think about as you do go into new locations. I'd also say something that's really, you'd be surprised. Some businesses think that they can send an employment contract from the UK for the Netherlands, and it just doesn't work. And Kathy, you'll know this well when you've looked at some of the data that you've mentioned around the different employees across different countries. They have different rights, completely different sort of setup, different payroll, of course, different benefits rules, and it's all different country to country. So these are things to be really, acutely aware of as and when you might look to enter these new markets. Another thing I'd mention is around, and related to the employment piece, is around discrimination protections. So these are, again, different in different countries. Just to give an example, recently I heard of a case where an employee in Russia was going to be dismissed, but they are seen as a protected person. They have protected characteristics because they are the only earner in the household and they have children under the age of 14. So in Russia, if you're dismissed for any reason and you're in that scenario, you're actually seen as protected, and the company can be liable to pay the salary even after dismissing that person up until the kid turns 14. So it's so varied from different country to country. So I think just in terms of overcoming this sort of challenge, and as I say, these are the types of things our clients are coming to us with all the time. It is about choosing the correct growth partner. So somebody like us that really can support you in terms of the automating the whole process. You get the access to the entity overnight. Payroll is taken care of, time, expense management, benefits, reporting, any employee status changes, all of this sort of stuff is really helping our clients and actually accelerating their time to revenue when they go into these new countries. So my advice would be come to Globalization Partners.
Well, you plug in there, Jennifer.
Yeah.
I think that was the last. I think I mentioned to you before that we had somebody who was employing somebody in Asia, and they thought that they could use their UK payroll software to deal with it all, and we had a little bit of a shock that obviously things are a lot different. So Kathy, what's your thoughts on, or do you have anything to expand on this particular question at all?
Yeah, I can only, first of all, agree with what's being said. It's not about copying your contracts to another country. It's payroll compliance is very different in each of the countries. In addition to this, I would focus on communication, just like what we had during Corona, when we were all working remotely. Communication can be an issue, sharing of information, informal learning, making sure people feel connected. I think we struggled as a company at the start of Corona with the connection with new employees, for instance. It's really onboarding for colleagues that are working from another location, making sure they feel part of the team as well, and yeah, nurturing the relationship. In addition to that, I think principles like huddling and team huddles, for instance, can help you with making the employees feel as one team and making sure productivity is also managed throughout the different locations as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Could you talk us through the main factors to consider while identifying a talent hub and advantages of doing so? Who shall I ask, Kathy or Jennifer? Shall I go to?
Yeah, I can comment on that one. We have opened multiple new countries in the past few years. So we started up our business in Finland, Sweden, Norway, Poland, Italy, Spain. And what we usually do when we open up a new country, yeah, we do a study, a desktop study, but also a link with local providers. And that study comprises a talent scan, making sure that there's enough availability of talent. Where do we look at? We look at unemployment rates, we look at schools, at LinkedIn studies on available profiles, but also, of course, we look at language skills that are available because you want to be able to communicate with your employees. Then again, we look at market potential because we do not just open locations to have talent there. We want to be subject matter experts and provide our business also through the different countries. And then we will look at the connection with existing locations from a travel perspective, from a time zone perspective. And then last but not least, we will also have a look at comp and ben packages offered on that location. What is the cost of employment, the facility cost, because we stimulate hybrid working. We do not do full remote working. So that's the elements we take into play before we start building up a business somewhere else.
Thanks, Kathy. And Jennifer, have you got anything to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Kathy. Lots of really valid points there, and really interesting to learn about the different countries that you guys have gone into as well, Kathy. I'd say the main factors, maybe just to go into a little bit more detail on things like time zone and geography. You know, these are the key things that you're thinking about when potentially opening up new teams in new places. Some of our clients have done that maybe more reactively, where, you know, it's just we've got a new client in a certain region and we need a certain skill, whether it's language or to be sort of in country and able to go on site. So that sort of client access piece can be really helpful, but also it's important to, you know, think for the long term. Is this somewhere where we strategically want to go as a business? I think that's a key factor to think about. Also the talent pool piece. Certain countries have fantastic sort of concentrations of certain types of talent. And you can especially think about diversity when you think about this as well. One of our clients was really, you know, they're a software engineering company and had lots and lots of white male developers. And so it was like, how do we attract more females? And I think they were really struggling to find different and be more gender balanced, but also have a more diverse team generally. And so one of the suggestions we made, what we found from some research, was that there's a great concentration of female developers in Turkey. And so they could then actually look there to find some fantastic game-changing talent. And also it helps balance the diversity in the gender imbalance, let's say, in the business. So these factors, I think, are really interesting to look at as a business. It's not just about sort of finding that talent. You can increase and benefit in other ways. And we all know that more diverse teams actually perform better as well. You know, you're more likely to be profitable as a business. So it's affecting your bottom line. And I think that's something that's a key takeaway. And then the final piece is cost, as Kathy mentioned. I think, you know, thinking about obviously different salary expectations are a super obvious one, but also things like the actual cost of the benefits. So the employer burden or social charges, as it might otherwise be known, can be really high in some countries. So places like Paraguay, Dominican Republic, France, the social charges can be anywhere up to 67%. And so you're thinking about the salary, but then you're adding another, almost 70% on top of that for the cost of an individual. So just be aware of these different sort of nuances as and when you go into these new sort of talent hubs, as we're calling them. I'd say the second part of this question is around the advantages. I've spoken to some of them around the sort of diversity piece. I think you can increase your market insight. You can get key data and key information from different clients in new markets. You can also improve your overall productivity. For example, us as a business, we're across APAC, North America, Southern America, EMEA. We're pretty much always on, and so there's always somebody there that can help a client or do something. And so when we go to bed, they're on, and when they go to bed, we're on. So I think that really helps us as a business. And that international brand piece, that's a key thing, especially for the talent piece as well. If you want to, people want to say to their friends, oh, I work for this company, and for their friends to go, cool, that's such a cool brand. And so if you can do anything to work towards that, I think that helps as well.
Just the finding more female developers in Turkey. I mean, what a great story, and that you can go to a different country and get the skill set that you actually need, or have a more diverse company. I think that's brilliant. Such a great story.
Thanks, Melanie.
What advice do you have for payroll professionals to ensure compliant payroll management with global remote teams? Kathy, I'll ask you this one.
Yeah, I would suggest please have a look at partial outsourcing of these activities, because you cannot be a specialist in all locations. That's not possible, given the complexity of legislation, given the fact that there are often last-minute changes into legislation as well. And the basics of a payroll is, of course, to be compliant at all times. So that would be my main advice when it comes to payroll in multi-location.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer, do you have anything to add? Because obviously this is a hot topic, isn't it, really, compliance?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Of course, I think in terms of, I guess, advice, it's more, well, I agree with Kathy around kind of outsourcing it. We do have such fantastic, businesses out there like SD Works, who are actual, experts, and their sole responsibility and focus is on this payroll piece. So instead of you as a business having to focus on the kind of bottom line and getting things right with the talent, as well as then becoming payroll experts for different countries, I don't know if that's that realistic. So I think in terms of payroll professionals, that you can leverage, you should definitely look into ensuring that if you do have a presence in multiple countries, that you are ensuring that they have the correct benefits and correct payroll rules in place, and adopting digital. I think that's a key part of it, ensuring that the business you're working with, they have the right tools and technology in place to automate a lot of this, because manual processes, nobody needs bottlenecks when it comes to pay.
Yeah, everyone needs to be paid at the end of the day correctly, don't they? You can have an unhappy team.
It's the one activity you cannot postpone in your schedule.
That's it. And isn't it the legal thing in everybody's contract, the payday, and to make sure that everything's correct. So it's one of the most important things. So Kathy, what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of payroll outsourcing? Obviously you've been at SD Works for a very long time.
Yeah, so I think if you look at outsourcing, whether it's payroll or not, the activity is done by someone that has a sole focus on payroll, a real expert. That makes it more reliable, I would say. And given the last minute changes where I referred to already previously with the pandemic, new changes, new measures to be taken up in your payroll run, it's important to have the expertise and also to have the continuity, because the pandemic has learned us as well that if you have one or two very expert payroll people, but they fall sick because of COVID or another reason, then you're a bit struggling to meet that deadline. That is the one deadline that cannot be postponed. So from a business continuity, it's an important one, because unforeseen situations will be tackled by your provider. I think giving the expertise, and it's really an expertise which is not an expertise that a lot of people have, the reducing risk and guaranteeing compliance is also one of the big advantages of that outsourcing. You know you are always getting the payroll compliance right, and there will not be things discovered later on. I think the emphasis became even bigger when GDPR was introduced as well, putting additional emphasis on the compliance element. Another thing is, I think what you usually have, and I say usually when you outsource your payroll, you're using systems and tools that are state of the art, that facilitate new way of working, that give your employee an payslip, for example, and also self-service application. And if we make the link to the start of our conversation, it's a bit what an HR function wants to do. They want to give the employee the experience of a customer. And in real life, a customer does everything in self-service, banking, etc. Why wouldn't that be accessible for payroll as well? I think also, as a basis, you can reduce costs also when you outsource your payroll, especially when it comes to training costs, to keep up to date with those changes in legislations, but also eventual costs linked to any human errors and data breaches. But for me, the most important as an HR leader is the fact that the freeing up the time by outsourcing that payroll makes your team focus on what really matters. And that's that talent, war for talent we have been talking about. It's about leaving payroll complexity to the specialists and creating your team, a team that can do added value when it comes to performance, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to talent acquisition, creating the talent of the future as well. So having your team focused on what really matters and what makes them shine is for me the most important reason to go for an outsourcing.
Yeah, I think that's so true, Kathy. I kind of echo what I said earlier and agree with you. That if you have people whose sole sort of focus and responsibility and expertise is around this payroll piece, because it's not easy. I think people maybe take for granted sometimes what payroll professionals do. It's not something that can just be easily kind of done, and you probably should use an expert in this space, because as you say, Kathy, you can focus in as a business on getting things right that we've mentioned today, like employer branding, things like diversity and inclusion goals, ensuring that you're going into the right markets depending on what your business goals and aspirations are. 100% agree with all of that. I think as well, one thing you mentioned around reducing cost and reducing the training, I didn't even think about the training piece. I was thinking about things like, I think payroll, especially when it's automated and it's done through the help of an outsourced company and the technology piece, can really help you find hidden costs that are related to the payroll management that you might not have even seen if you had been doing it in-house. And also I think it prevents mistakes, which Kathy, as you mentioned, you have to get it right. It's the one thing, as you say, you can't postpone or delay, and it is really sort of, high risk, low reward, but as you say, we have to get it right. And I think by outsourcing it to the experts, it does minimize the chance of errors or missed deadlines, or any kind of omissions and things like that. So guaranteeing the compliance around that and the correctness of it. It does talk about disadvantage of outsourcing, I guess, in this question. If some companies might see the loss of control as a disadvantage. and also threats against things like confidentiality and sometimes being difficult to coordinate if you do have maybe different payroll managers or administrators at your own side that have to kind of liaise with the outsourcing company, then maybe these could be seen as shortfalls when outsourcing.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay. So what are the main ways in which companies can ensure a successful global payroll strategy? So who would like to answer this one first? Should we go with Jennifer?
Sure thing. Yes, I think in terms of ensuring a successful global payroll strategy, just had to reread the question. I think things like that the synchronicity, so just what I mentioned earlier around connecting, if you are outsourcing and connecting with administrators or contacts at your own side in the business, being synchronized and having set sort of meetings and deadlines where you can ensure you're not missing anything. Having standardization across the board as well, I think is super important. As much as we know that it differs country to country, at least if the output is standardized, for example, your CFO or whoever is looking at the numbers can see that sort of global payroll spend and understand, what cost centers are, outperforming others, and also ensuring things like vendor governance. So, ensuring that you understand, their sort of certifications around data compliance and how they process the information that you might be that they might be using in order to run the payroll for your business. So ensuring that you are doing your due diligence when looking at new vendors as well. I'd say they're the key things from my perspective.
Thanks, Jennifer. Kathy, I bet you've got a lot of thoughts on this side.
I think it all starts if you decide to go for that partial outsourcing or full outsourcing. It starts with a scan, an audit of what currently is there, and then you will easily find the topics that can easily be outsourced or standardized or digitized, and you work your way through. There's not a lot of companies that decide from a full in-house payroll to a fully outsourced on one moment. It's a gradual approach where you also do some process optimization on the way, where you look at what the market does, but also what's there already. So it's understanding also what your payroll process is before changing it or outsourcing it.
Do you think sort of networking with your business partners within the company is important as well before you start that process? Sort of have friends on side.
I think at always, when you do a change, any transformation should be aligned with your business partners. You cannot decide as an HR on your own that it's a good idea to outsource. You need to convince your CEO, you need to convince your finance team, you need to convince your own team as well before taking a step. And that's just change management, I would say.
A bit of networking.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So what role does technology play in helping companies identify and hire the right global talent? I can imagine this is really important. Kathy, would you like to start with this one?
Yeah, I think the possibilities of technology, but on a broader scale, data and insight are endless when you look at the talent challenge. So you have your short-term challenges where you want to do talent attraction, reduce your time and your cost to hire better candidates, but also create a better candidate experience. Retention, it's about onboarding where technology can play a part as well. It's also about making sure productivity levels are okay, so reducing absenteeism, performance management, but also flexibilization of reward. A big item in many of the countries in Europe where employees decide within the package offered by the employer to do some flexibility. And I think you have that in the UK as well with salary sacrifice schemes, but also company cars versus car allowance, their technology can help you as an HR team to pick up the choices your employees have made. From a development perspective, obviously learning, delivering digital contact to your employees and your leadership is important. That's short term on the 3 pillars of attraction, retention, development. On the longer term, technology and data insights can even play an important role in your strategic workforce planning. It's about making sure that you have the generation for the future there that is in line with what the company needs, what the company currently has, and what the company still needs to develop from a skill gap perspective. And there's plenty of technology available to have this succession and potential scan and skill scan done in a more or less automated way and always up to date. And so not just a one yearly exercise that is done and that costs a lot of efforts. So yeah, technology and the data and insights coming from that are very important.
Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you. Totally agree. Kathy, again, speak a lot of wisdom today. And just, on the data side of things as well, I think that ability to tap into your workforce's sort of feedback, kind of what you said, Kathy, around them kind of almost like being your customers, thinking about your employees and getting sort of feedback and data from them. And I think, part of that is having the right culture so that the employees do feel like they can come forward with their feelings and vocalize, their feedback and their thoughts without any kind of, maybe negative consequences. But also having the technology and the process in place to gather that feedback and get that data, because I think key things like, what drives you, what motivates you, why have you stayed, for those people that have stayed with the business for the last 5 years throughout all this madness, why did you stay, what makes you stay here? And those are the sort of pieces of information that you can then use to sort of feed into your talent strategy and then how you access new pools of talent. I also think generally technology can act as a key enabler in navigating a lot of these challenges that we've discussed today, and more generally, especially for high growth companies that are seeking that game changing talent, wherever it may be. So I'd say the most recent contribution here that we've had is through the launch of our new tool called GP Recruit. And that's where customers can actually quickly and compliantly hire new team members anywhere in the world, but also tap into a network of or a selection of recruiters and recruiting specialists, so they can actually help clients to find the perfect talent based on their unique requirements, the role, the location, what sort of challenges they're facing. And this piece of technology now is there for our clients to actually go in, pick a role, pick a location, and we'll bring in one of our recruiting consultants, help them find that great talent and put them onto our platform. So that's, it's a fantastic product that we've just launched, and we can see clients already benefiting from it.
Thanks so much. We've actually recruited somebody abroad ourselves at the GPA, and I think it's one of the best decisions that we've made, and we would carry on recruiting people from outside the UK just to get that skill set. And it's just, we're in this great time of, we've had some crazy times, haven't we? But we're in this perfect situation now where you literally can find people from all around the world. We know that it works. And even though we haven't met Nathan personally, but he feels like he's part of the team because of all the technology you have with Zoom and everything else. So, we would carry on recruiting from, outside the UK as well. So thank you so much. And we're just going on to our questions now. Our first question is, our company is new to international expansion. Which market should we consider first? So who would like to answer that? Kathy?
I can give you some advice. I cannot give you a location. Okay. I would first advise you to do some desktop analysis on available talent in your working environment, the type of skills you need. See if the universities offer the profile you need, and then do the check on location within the country, but also the cost of employment, cost of national insurance or other. So a general recipe I don't have. If I would have that, then yeah, I would be happy. But no, it depends a bit on your activity and the type of talent you're looking for to come up with an answer.
And Jenny, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's very true, Kathy. It is so sort of subjective depending on the talent that you're after. And maybe how much budget you have, all that sort of stuff. We recently did a survey with CFO Research, and it said that APAC, excluding China, was the most sort of highly targeted region for 65% of the executives that we interviewed. So that just shows you maybe where people are looking at the moment. And we know that, it's a fantastic place for talent and potentially lower costs in terms of some lower labor cost markets there. Poland has also become an absolute hotbed of tech talent, one of the biggest hubs in Europe for global tech companies. And we've hired some fantastic teams in Colombia and Mexico City for sort of customer service, some fantastic content writers. So, again, it's so much dependent on your particular needs. But maybe they're just some sort of anecdotal examples, and the Turkey maybe developer examples.
I can confirm the Poland case. We started our business over there in April last year, and we're now already above 100 employees in all kinds of functions like technology, but also in the HR team. We've recruited heavily, general comp and ben specialists, for instance. In our SAP environment, we found a lot of talent as well, payroll as well. And the big advantage of Poland is they all speak English as well, so you can communicate with them. And in addition, often they also know German, so which is important for us as well.
Yeah.
So we did have a country that we could recommend.
Yeah, but don't all run to Poland.
Yeah.
Because we would like to keep the talent with us that works in Poland.
I'd say we've got a lot of members in Poland as well. So yeah, we definitely have. So another question that we've received is, how can I run global payroll successfully for my team, which is fully remote? So we've sort of touched on that, haven't we? But Jennifer, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I think in terms of running global payroll, yeah, this is something we're doing ourselves. As I say, we've got 1,000 people across 187 countries, so it's nuts. So I think the first thing I would think about is having the right people. So really thinking about having the right employees in place who have the right sort of knowledge and background in terms of running that payroll. It's important to think that each country, those different people have the different knowledge of the different payroll rules. And it depends on depending on the rules you're looking to fill, thinking about the salaries that you're paying, the mandatory benefits, etc. As we've covered some of this already. Also ensuring that you have the right expertise. So, payroll is super complex. It's always changing and it's different country to country. So there's so many challenges there that I think, especially in terms of compliance, utilizing payroll professionals that are local, they will be able to, help you keep abreast and keep on top of these different changing rules. So I think before hiring, consider whether your current payroll team or a new in-country expert should handle it. And of course, we covered this a little bit as well, but technology plays a key role in that sort of cross-country workflow as well, to kind of consolidate the different, or maybe rationalize the different currencies and different things that need to be reported on in different countries. So ensure that you do have great technology and tools in place, again, to stop any kind of bottlenecks or manual approvals or sign-offs. I think these are all things that will ultimately damage the payroll strategy that you have. So I think these things need to be clarified. Also thinking about hiring new people. More generally, we're talking about talent today. Ensure you have got it right in those new countries before you hire somebody, because if you get their payroll wrong in their first month, it's probably not going to do great things for your retention of that talent. So I'd say that's a key thing to think about as well.
And Kathy, do you have anything to add?
No. I don't.
Sorry.
There's so much.
Seems very complete.
I was just checking the questions. We've had a couple of other questions come in, and I've flicked onto the slides. So sorry, Jennifer, if I made you lose your place at one point. So one question we have is, how are you able to manage cross-country payroll payments, especially when talking about flexible with remote working? Is that something that could be answered now, or is that an offline one?
I mean, it probably is more. I could probably give a bit more detail offline. Could go back and get a bit more information on this for you. But I know, for example, most of us, most of sort of us and our partners, are outsourcing that to a payments provider. So again, it is going back to that expert piece. But Ricardo, if you have sort of specific questions around this where we can address that, absolutely, we can take it offline and discuss that.
Okay, and what is the best way to implement employer branding? So Jennifer, you've mentioned this quite a lot. This is a key piece.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's a lot of different things you can be doing. Of course, we all know that things like word of mouth and referrals are so powerful, and making it easy for employees to refer. So in previous roles, I've used referral software that's just been more of a pain. And even though you're getting offered a referral fee, it's not always enough to actually go through that process if it's painful from a technology standpoint. Because as soon as people experience friction in doing that, I think that really puts them off. So make it really easy and simple for referrals to take place. For example, there's a new tool out there called HireUp. It's actually an Irish company, but it's a few developers that have created this wonderful referral tool for you to easily get employees in the door referred into the business. So I think that's a key piece. We've also seen a lot of clients successfully use things like media, so different videos when they have maybe launched in a new office, and things to sort of get hyped up on things like LinkedIn and social media, and effectively using those internal communications tools as well to really, because I honestly think it can be sort of contagious, internally. If you have that culture, it can really be a lovely sort of positive cycle where your employees will advocate for you. And I think those are the key things that you could do to ensure that they're out there kind of singing your praises.
And using a bit of marketing.
Yeah.
Market the company.
Yeah, so if I can add to that, I think important when you define your employer brand is that it's realistic. So meaning it's true. What you push in the outside world needs to be recognized when people join, because otherwise they will leave immediately. So it needs to be realistic. How do you know what your people sense in your company? You have multiple sources of info. You have engagement survey, you have exit interviews, performance reviews, but you can also do additional workshops just for this purpose and bringing everything together. So it's important it's realistic. It's important that it's connecting, that it brings answers to the needs of the employees you want to target, that it's inspiring, that it makes people move to apply with your company, to join your company, and also that it's differentiating enough, that it's distinctive from your competitors. There can be also an element of ambition in your employer brand, of course. You don't necessarily need to go to the market with the as is. There can be some ambition in it, but what is really important that afterwards, when you design it, that you look at the employee life cycle and that you compare this and make sure that at every touch point an employee has with the HR team or with their people leaders, people coaches, that it reflects the same brand, because otherwise it was just a slogan, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people get disillusioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the webinar, but we have one last question. Why is a strategic global payroll strategy necessary for 2022 and beyond? I'm looking at both of you there. Jennifer, would you like to answer this one?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, at the risk of repeating myself, I think honestly, if you are going to take some of the advice that we've talked about today, where you do want to find great talent no matter where it may reside and offer that remote and flexible working approach, then I honestly think it's a bit of a no-brainer for you as a business to have a great strategy when it comes to that, global payroll approach. So again, ensuring that you have the right people and tools and technology and expertise, both locally and then across the board. As a business, you're able to sort of have that general overview so that you can make good decisions around where the business is going, and also kind of how you pay the employees. They won't be happy, or they won't want to necessarily work for you as a business if you're not getting it right, doing it on time, without fault, and without any compliance issues. And especially as we mentioned, going cross country, that's where it can get tricky. So I think it's critical to ensure that your payroll strategy adheres to those various international laws, ensuring that you avoid any sort of penalties or things that could stifle your growth in the long run, because that's really ultimately what we're trying to do here, to grow as a business and acquire great talent. So I think honestly that's why the best thing I would my view is that the best approach is to choose the right global growth partner, and that will help you ensure that you are compliant and keeping employees happy, which is most important.
And Kathy, before we finish up, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Also mindful of time. No, I don't. I think it's also, we discussed it already during the questions you asked at the start. So
I think it is, from our perspective, we hear so many horror stories, and obviously good stories as well, and compliance and getting the right partner is definitely the top two things that I think that we hear people have issues with, and how important it is to get those two things correct. So I agree with a lot of what you guys have said today, and thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and all of this information. If people do want to contact you, can they contact you via LinkedIn? Is that okay?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely
okay.
Fabulous. And Jennifer, I'll introduce you to Ricardo so that you can speak to each other offline. But as I said, thanks once again. I hope to see you both at another webinar that we'll run. As I said, if anybody has any questions, contact Jennifer and Kathy directly. But thanks once again. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.